Alrighty, so today we are going to talk about the defending MLS Cup champion that is the LA Galaxy, which unfortunately they won't be defending MLS Cup champion for a long time. I mean, as I mentioned throughout this season, it's been an absolute disaster for the LA Galaxy. I mean, this is by far the worst season I've ever seen a defending MLS Cup champion has had, and now they're hoping to avoid doing something that no defending MLS Cup champion has ever done, and that, of course, is win the wooden spoon the very next year, and they're currently at that spot right now, and they're gonna try to fight to avoid winning the wooden spoon on decision day. I think they're only 1 point out in terms of avoiding finishing dead last in the standings. And as I also said throughout this season, it feels like this season for the Galaxy was just Murphy's Law. I mean, everything that can go wrong for the Galaxy went wrong this season, whether it's the fact that they've had to pay the heavy cup tax after last season, or the fact that there are players that currently injure at the worst possible time, or the fact that they have games where there's been a lot of bad luck involved and a lot of blown leads that has happened this season once again for the Galaxy. And let's also not forget to mention the fact that the defense, I mean, oh boy, it went back to being one of the worst defensive team in the league, as we usually traditionally said about the Galaxy at the end of the season, where the defense have always been a problem for this team. But with that being said, they have a 5-9-18 record and currently have 24 points. They've scored 42 goals this season, which is not bad. I mean, consider to be a team that is dead last in the standings. 42 goals is definitely a lot. It's definitely a team that goal scoring is not the main issue for this Galaxy team. The main issue, obviously, is keeping the ball out of the back of net. 64 goals have conceded this season, which is among the most. I believe they have right up there in terms of the top three in terms of the most. They might not have the worst, because I believe the Quakes actually have the worst. Well, actually, let's take a look right now, shall we? I mean, I say the Quakes have the worst because it feels like when I watch Quakes game, they give up like a lot of goals every single game. So let me just double check to make sure indeed that is the case. Oops, so there's the wrong button there. Let's take a look. No, the Quakes actually does not have the worst defensive record. So yeah, I take that back. The Galaxy does have the worst defensive record in the Western Conference. They actually don't have the worst defensive record in the league, because as I look in the East, looks like DC have the worst defensive record. DC actually conceded 65 goals compared to the Galaxy having conceded 64 goals. So at least if you're a Galaxy fan, hey, at least we're not the worst when it comes to defensively throughout this season. They're of course currently last in the Western Conference and currently hold the wooden spoon spot. They're 1 point behind in terms of DC trying to avoid winning the wooden spoon, and we'll see how that final day is going to do, whether if they can do so, able to beat Minnesota, and maybe hope that DC lose their game so they avoid the dreaded fate of winning the wooden spoon again. Now, when it looks to the top goal scored on this team, Joseph Painto actually leads the team with 9 goals, and this is kind of interesting because Painto, we know his struggle throughout the season, especially in the beginning of the year, starting off on the IR, and it definitely took a while for him to get going, and with the absence of Ricky Pooch. In fact, the two other killer P's of Painto and Peck, it just feels like they really miss Ricky Pooch this season. I mean, I think there's no doubt that Ricky Pooch means a lot to this team. He's the heart and soul, especially on the attack. But I think you could argue he's the heart and soul when it comes to the killer peas. It just feels like if you take him out of the killer peas are not going to operate as well as it is, and we kind of saw it with both Painto and Peck, both of them having down year this season. Though Painto did kind of rediscover his form a little bit near the end of the season, with finishing up with 9 goals. Then you have Diego Fagundes with 6 goals in second, followed by Marco Royce with 5 goals, Gabriel Peck with 5 goals, and Christian Ramirez rounds up the top five with 4 goals. Top assist leader is actually Marco Royce with 9 assists, and if he would have stayed healthy for most of the season, he probably could have hit double-digit assists. He's actually been very good for the Galaxy, and we'll talk about that discussion in just a bit, of the fact that the Galaxy made the right move in the end of letting go of Delgado, and trust that Royce will be the one that will be a perfect replacement for him. But then you got Gabriel Peck with 8 assists, Mauricio Cuevas with 6 assists, a youngster that kind of really blossomed this season. And then you got Joseph Painter with 6 assists, and Mickey Mane rounds up the top five with 4 assists. So best win of the season for the Galaxy. There were a couple ones I could have chose. I mean, I know Galaxy fans will say, both of the LA games that they play in El Tráfico can consider best win of the season, especially the last one that is able to come from behind a couple of times to get a big result. But I'm gonna go with the 3-0 win that the Galaxy had against Vancouver on July 4th. And yes, Vancouver wasn't really playing their strongest team in that game. The fact that the Galaxy was doing very bad up to that point and just kind of shock everybody by getting an impressive 3-0 win like that. And I also know that the Whitecaps did had a man sent off in that one, but still, again, this is a Galaxy team that has been in just horror run of form. I mean, they're not long after ending their 16 game winless run to start the season. So yeah, I think that was considered to be a good victory. I think the another best win of the season you could definitely say has to be recently where they would win 4-1 against Sporting KC. That was the Joseph Paint so game when he scored a hat trick. But I'm not gonna count that as an impressive win compared to this one because we know Sporting KC are a very bad team, and we'll talk about that in just a bit once I get to talk about them in the moving forward series episode. Worst loss of the season. There were definitely a lot that I could have chose in terms of the worst loss of the season. I could have definitely chose a couple of those games where they blown leads, especially the game against the Union when they blow a 2-0 lead and end up losing 3-2 in that game. But at the end of the day, I gotta go with the 7-0 loss that they lost to the Red Bulls in that MLS Cup rematch. I mean, that was by far the worst game the Galaxy not only played this season, but maybe in their franchise history. I mean, we have seen a couple of times this season where a team have suffered 7-0 losses and easily equal the worst loss in their franchise history, and I believe this has to be it right up there. I mean, just an absolute embarrassment for the Galaxy in general. I mean, the Red Bulls weren't playing pretty well at home for the most part, but the fact that they got absolutely smacked like that in an MLS Cup rematch, that was definitely anticipated. I mean, we were kind of question whether the Red Bulls can get some revenge against the Galaxy. And while we kind of thought that was going to be the case because the Galaxy really struggled coming out of the game, I did not be something in favor of the Red Bulls by the end of the game. Now, in terms of average attendance, 20,338, which is good for 21st. Yeah, the average attendance have definitely gone down. That's not a big surprise consider, when this team are not doing well, yeah, good luck trying to get Galaxy fans showing up games. And yeah, the attendance definitely took a big of a drop this season. Now, look at the MVP this season. I almost couldn't really quite find who is the MVP of this team because anytime when you have a team that is this bad, it is really hard to see who exactly deserved to be the most valuable player. But I'm gonna go with Marco Royce mainly because again going back to that question, was it worth it though of them letting go of Mark Delgado to LAFC in order to keep Marco Royce? That was always a big question hanging the Galaxy had? And I think the answer is kind of complicated. I mean, it could be yes, the fact that, when Marco Royce is healthy, you can clearly see what he can bring to his table, and you can clearly see that he of course, still have gas left in the tank to be a creative player like he has done pretty much for his entire career. The problem is that, the reason why I say it's a complicated answer is the fact that, as it is the case throughout the entire career of Marco Royce, he's been very injury prone, and it's shown once again this season where he has had tough time in terms of staying healthy on the pitch. I mean, if you can get Marco Royce fit for maybe about 80% of the game, that's considered a miracle compared to the fact that he's basically one of the most injury cursed player, not only in MLS but in the world of football as well. And that, yeah, this is where it gets difficult. The fact that, well, on one hand, when he's healthy, he's definitely produced the way that we expected him, and we don't really regret letting go of Mark Delgado, who was a huge piece to the midfield for this Galaxy team. But on the other hand, when he's not healthy and he's not there, they don't really have a decent replacement. I mean, they try to do it with Edwin Cirillo, and Cirillo pretty serviceable at times, but he's not anywhere near the level Marco Royce is. Now, the good news for the Galaxy next season, once they do get Ricky Puig back, I mean, I am assuming that Marco Royce will still play. He's going to be under contract for these next year or so. But I think he's definitely going to get a more limited role, which could really help him in terms of his health because again, for with the way that he's been just so injury prone throughout his career, I just wonder, with the way that the Galaxy kind of overwork him, playing him almost every single game, that his body just can't really take in, and with the way that Pooch does return next season, that will at least kind of help the Galaxy decide to not play Marco Royce every single game, and maybe have him coming off the bench and making the impact that he can be. Because like I said, it's shown this season that when he's healthy, he can still help and make a huge impact and pull on the string in the midfield for this Galaxy side. Now, disappointment for this team. Oh boy, there was a long list of disappointment that I could have chose. This was a really tough one, not because of the fact that there's not a lot of players. There's an endless choice I could have chose in terms of disappointment, but ultimately in the end, I'm gonna go with Zonka as the biggest disappointment for the LA Galaxy, and I think Galaxy fans can agree. I mean, we talk about some big busts that the Galaxy have signed in recent years. This is definitely one of them. I mean, we know that Zonka can definitely bring that defensive presence like we've seen during his days in the Premier League, especially with Brentford. But yeah, when he comes to the Galaxy, I mean, it just feels like not only his career is kind of starting to wind down, but it looks like he has just hit the wrong end of 30. I mean, he is completely washed up. He was a huge liability to that defense, and unfortunately, they're going to be stuck with him for another 2 seasons unless they, of course, will exercise a buyout. I won't be surprised they might exercise a buyout on him, because the contract that he currently has, yeah, that is a huge contract. That really sink the Galaxy in terms of their chances of potentially finding a improved defense and a replacement, because, like I said, he was a huge liability to a point where they haven't really played him a lot, mainly because he's just absolutely got awful at the back as well. So revelation for this team, this is kind of an interesting one, because this is also kind of a bit of a tough one, because throughout the season, I mentioned before, with the way that the Galaxy are playing out of the string, that those at least allowed them to give some chances for some of their players from Ventura County Fusion to get some minutes. So we have seen guys like Harbor Miller, Maurizio Cuevas, Chris Rindolph recently added from Ventura County Fusion as well, and even Tucker Nepley getting some minutes for this Galaxy team coming out of Ventura County Fusion. So, most of these guys that when they came in, I thought did well. I mean, most of these guys, it just feels like didn't skip a beat, and that's another example of why MLS Next Pro, and just the applause to MLS Next Pros in terms of developing these players, not only to their fullest, but make sure that they're once they do get the call up, they're gonna be ready once they come to MLS, and they look like they're seasoned veteran, even though they just make the jump to a much more competitive edge compared to what we see in MLS Next Pro. But in the end, I'm actually gonna go with Maurizio Cuevas. I think out of all the players that the Galaxy, of course, called up from Ventura County Fusion, he's been one that is probably the most impressive one, especially on the assist chart as well. It's kind of interesting, the fact that whenever he's in the starting 11, it just feels like the Galaxy are just looking much more dangerous, and he kind of reminds me a little bit of what Guy Wagner did to the Union, where he plays in that fullback position, one of the more dangerous attacking fullback in this league, and he kind of showed it throughout his short time with the Galaxy what he can do when it comes to producing seeing the assist card. So yeah, this is definitely a guy that the Galaxy have found a hidden gem, and a guy that don't be surprised he might get more starts for this team heading into next season, and may even be sold off for a huge amount of money if he continued the growth projectile that he currently has. So what went right for this Galaxy team? So not really much that have went right for this team, but they know that they will be in the CONCACAF Champions Cup next season as well, mainly because they finished third in the Leeds Cup. The Leeds Cup was a huge salvage point for the Galaxy. Like that with them going on an incredible run, eventually finished third in the standings. I mean, ideally they would love to win it to really salvage the season, but I think it's a good consolation with them winning that third place match against Orlando City, and that they get another shot of the CONCACAF Champions Cup after they themselves this year. I feel like this year in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, they actually did much better than I thought that they would do. Consider everything was falling apart when it comes to their league form. They're CONCACAF Champions Cup run this season was definitely more successful than I thought that it would be, and it feels like when it comes to cup competition, the Galaxy definitely did much better compared to what we see in league play. That is, and then I mentioned some good emerging talent guys like Cuevas, Miller, and even Nascimento, another guy I haven't mentioned before. He didn't come from Ventura County Fusion, but he's a guy that they of course sign, and he's definitely shown his ability to be a decent number nine, even though he has had some injury issue throughout this latter part of the season. He's another guy that could have some good emerging young talent, and that yeah, the Galaxy, I know they have some top heavy talented player, but there's no doubt that they also have some youth that could really help the depth of this team heading into next season, because I think we found out this year the depth of this team was not as strong as what we thought that they weren't, especially with a disastrous season like they did. And then lastly, I think the other thing that went right is I think Galaxy fans will be proud to say at least they didn't lose to LAFC once. I know they didn't win against LAFC in those two El Chaco meeting, but the fact that they didn't lose to them, and despite LAFC having one of their better season, I mean that's gonna be something that Galaxy fans will take pride on at the end of the day. Now, what went wrong for this team? It's a 16 game winless run. So yeah, we already talked about before. I think I already made a video talking about the 16 game winless run of how much of a disaster that is. By far the longest winless run to start the season. And really ever since the 16 game winless run, I've also mentioned the fact that I think the Galaxy have been pretty respectable. Like, ever since the 16 game winless run has gone in the second half of the season. Yes, the record is still not pretty, but it's respectable to a way where they will be right on the edge in terms of being in playoff contention, and consider all the injuries and all the talent that has really sapped from this team. That's a pretty respectable mark compared to the early part of the season, where the 16 game winless run has kind of is something I mentioned in the beginning of this video, where it's a combination of bad luck and also just most of the time getting run over by other team throughout that winless run. The defense, of course, is back being a mess, and the same you can say about the goalkeeping spot as well. So again, it feels like it's a tale always time where we always talk about the Galaxy defense being an absolute mess. Besides last year, where they thought that they found some stability in the defensive shape, yeah, this season it feels like they gone back to the regress form. I mean, even last year when we see one of their more prominent defender that has rose to the occasion, Emmanuel Garces, he really regressed this season as well, and he was kind of part of the liability at the back of just being an absolute mess. And then the revolving door with the goalkeeping, throughout the season. They started with Mikovic in the beginning of the season. He was pretty bad, and then they switched back to McCarthy. He was bad as well, and now they switch back to Mikovic while cutting John McCarthy and sending him to another MLS team. So yeah, it just feels like it's a revolving door of goalkeeping. Goalkeeping might be another thing that they might be looking forward to, because Novak Mikovic, yes, he has shown some good moments, but there's also times where you think, I don't know if he's considered to be an MLS caliber starting goalkeeper, even though Grant Benny insists that yeah, he's going to be the future for the Galaxy in terms of the goalkeeping spot. And then of course the Campeones Cup final. I mean, that game just kind of sums up the Galaxy season. A game where they were so close in terms of winning the game and probably should have won it. They had the lead with the last 6 minutes of the game, and then in typical Galaxy season fashion, when you think that there's a good sign of improvement, everything just go to pear shape in the last 6 minutes. I mean, just there's an absolute collapse in that game against Toluca, and a game where they forgot how to defend set piece in the last 6 minutes of the game that cost them the Conference Cup and cost them what could have been another salvage point of the season. I mean, as bad as this season is, at least the Galaxy could have had a chance to say at least we won a silverware, which is something that not many team in MLS would get to say by the end of the season. And I know it is the Campeones Cup, and I know some people say the Campeones Cup might not consider to be a real silverware. I mean, at the end of the day, there is a shining trophy that players lift at the end of the game. So yeah, I think that's considered a trophy, and especially of how bad this season has been, that would have been one of the bright point of the Galaxy season. But instead, they decided to collapse late in the games, forget how to defend set piece. It kind of sums up what has just been a miserable season for the Galaxy. So moving forward for this team, so I already mentioned before, I feel like this team out of all the teams that miss out on the playoffs or potentially will miss out on the playoffs because we still have a couple of teams that is fighting for playoff hope heading into to the last game of the season. Oh, they're definitely in the best shape in my opinion. We know the killer piece should be back. We know Ricky Puig, who did not play a single minute in this season, he should be back well rested, and I expect he should be back to being his best as well. I mean, it's never easy to come back from a torn ACL injury. But consider the fact that Ricky Pooch has had a full season to do, and there's been times where he has been able to stay at least sharp in terms of uh doing in training. I think he's been back in training, but the reason why they haven't really played him is because there's really no reason to play him or rush him back when this season the Galaxy has had is kind of just gone down the wayside. So I expect with the way that the killer piece is going to return next season, this attack is going to be once again scary, just like what we've seen in previous year. The problem is that if they want to get themselves back to be an MLS Cup contender, they definitely need to fix the defense and goalkeeping, and it's going to be hard to do so because they don't really have a lot of caps base and game to play with in terms of fixing that. I mean, there will be a chance where exercise some buyouts and maybe get rid of some of the contract that when you look at the contract situation, a lot of some of these players that are not doing very good. Unfortunately, they're kind of stuck with the contract until next season. But there are definitely some contract that they can definitely get rid of that can free up some cap space and free up some GAM or get some more GAM as well, and to a point where I think the Galaxy could be active this winter transfer window, and the big part of why they weren't really active is because they just don't have any GAM or cap space. To, they had to even get rid of some of the guys just to get themselves under the cap situation. So yeah, I think the Galaxy should be fine next season. This season was just it just feels like it's kind of an outlier season, and it's a season that kind of is another example of why MLS clearly needs to increase the cap. I mean, the Galaxy have been was their disapproval in the beginning of the season, and I definitely agree with them and the frustration, the fact that yeah, we shouldn't be seeing this situation where teams are getting punished because of winning MLS Cup, and once after the MLS Cup that is win and the cup tax that they have to pay, it shouldn't be as severe. That's what we've seen this season with the Galaxy. However, obviously things that will definitely need to improve next season besides the defense. We'll see whether or not the mentality of this team will definitely improve, because the mentality of this team was pretty weak throughout this season, and the fact that they decided to also bring back Greg Vanny, which again, that's a very interesting decision for them to bring him back, despite the fact that there was talks of the fact that maybe they'll let him go, especially of how disastrous the season is. That will be interesting to see whether that will pay dividend heading into next season as well, especially with them just rewarding him a contract extension in probably one of the most bizarre and craziest timeline, where remember he was rewarded a contract extension when they were still in the midst of this winless run. I mean, that really shocked a lot of people, and probably not the best timing to award someone a contract extension when everything is just falling apart for this Galaxy team. But there you have it. That is pretty much it. Looking at the LA Galaxy in the Moving Forward series episode. As always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of this video. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.